So, after 400 Ks of racing and another 400 to go during the last leg, which was incorporated into the Ford Motorrad 400 race, it was the Nissan enjoying a huge 5-hour lead in the international section, while Cronje and Birken led the locals by half an hour. On the off day 3, there was a tough southern and northern loop ahead, just the same as the races in the 4th round of the Absa Off-Road Championship, starting and finishing at the Eysterberg Resort just outside Polokwane. Starting off next to the railway line, the men even 5 hours behind knew that just to keep it going meant that you had a chance of victory, as almost half the field had received lateness penalties, so all wasn't lost. Extreme dryness of the Limpopo province had caused havoc, and drivers were desperately trying to avoid riding in each other's dust. For Kiz and Chekledi, their clutch finally gave up the ghost and brought them to a grinding halt, to the consternation of the official. Cronje and Birken's Castrol Toyota was trusty as ever on the other hand, and the youngster kept it going superbly. The Cries were very happy with their second place in the international race, but were still mindful of their second place in the national championship tussle. Corbett's team did a great job of repairing the blue, red and yellow liveried Nissan, and they were certainly back in the thick of things. While Musaji and Bodjana's luck were going to run out again with more mechanical failure. Kiz was desperate as he saw his chances for a historic South African win slip away, but the trusty Nissan pit crew were as always Trojans and worked on his car like worker ants preparing for winter. At the DSP, the feverish activity had a different pitch to it. The crews knew that this was the second last time that they'd have to give everything. Toyota's Mark Cronje felt that they just needed to get to the line, but it was tough.
Yeah, we're just taking it easy. The special vehicles are just really fast through the rocks and through the rough. So yeah, we want to make the 400 Ks. We've been warned already, so I think it's important for us to get to the end.
Corbett and Moore again had a few problems of their own.
It's going well. We've just got a few power steering problems, but otherwise we had to pass about 20 people because of the puncture on the time trial. But we're doing it right.
Meanwhile, the rest of the 70-odd competitors in the Ford Motorrad 400 were also out there competing after their prologue the previous day, and they were obviously a factor too. Cronje was going very well. And after overcoming their earlier problems, so were Corbett and Moore. The Cries were as consistent as ever. While the Russians, now in the lead, had to drive with care, yet not let the lead slip. A tall order in the tough bushveld conditions, made so much worse by the dry road and the tall grass. Musaji was trying to nurse his vehicle around, but also suffered a 2-hour lateness penalty. Kiss and Chekledi tried as hard as they could and passed some of the SA National Championship backmarkers. Cronje and Birken's Toyota Hilux was singing along. While Corbett blitzed the field in the third leg special stage 5 and shot up from 43rd to 3rd in the national championship race. A phenomenal drive. had also hauled him up to first in the international racing category. Mosaji was sideways at times and kept plugging away. While the Russian pairing was staunch in a car which was not really built for the conditions they encountered in the Limpopo bush. Kiss had made a splash all along but could just not maintain, and the broken clutch meant that he kissed the win goodbye. At DSP, the Shmakov-Mezheyakov combination were happy to stretch the legs, while the crews worked feverishly. For the Nissan pit, there was not a lot to do but to check the normal and ensure that the spare tyres and rims were all serviceable. And on the run into home, the Russians only had to keep it going to say Nazdarovia. Meanwhile, the fourth leg national championship contenders were also churning up the road, and that made it even tougher for the African heritage cross-country competitors. Conversely, it did make for better racing as the cross-country lads could keep time with fresher vehicles and fresh pilots too. Jan and Hendrik were well on their way to a solid showing in the ABSA Championship, as well as making a name for themselves in the FIA Championship. The Nissan of Kiz and Cheklady was willing and able, but their lateness penalties cost them dearly in the end. And even though they were ahead of the Russian car in the run to the line, they were too far behind to make any real impression, and the Moscow crew just kept it nice and steady as she goes, Skipper. Corbett and Moore flew along and battered past all but 3 cars on their way to passing 40. A fine performance. While the Crows certainly impressed with their consistency over 3 very tough days. Now, an hour and 16 minutes behind, the Hungarians had resigned themselves to a second place, but their points haul was still enough to get them a handy position in the fight for championship log points. However, the Class T1 championship win, and thus almost an unassailable lead in the race for supremacy in the FIA series, went to Shmakov and Mezheyakov in the by now battered-looking Zul. At the line, Corbett and Moore surprised and delighted the SA fans with a fine win on the last leg, but it was a little too late.
Well, the first day out was quite nice because we had very similar terrain to what we're in today, and it got us used to the car. Obviously, the biggest thing is the left-hand drive, you know. We tend to bang the car on the right-hand side, sitting on the left-hand side of the car.
Is your navigator still speaking to you?
He's a bit nervous at the moment, but he's glad we came third.
And comments on the route out there?
The route was very tight today and rough, but luckily for us, a lot of people got lost ahead of us. So the navigating was perfect from a navigator side, and we managed to catch up a lot of positions. But just very rough today.
The Crows were home next and were also delighted with their drive.
Yeah, I think it helped us a bit. We knew exactly how the route markers marked it, and the GPS, we knew exactly how to work that. And I must say, Hendrik was, he was tops, eh? You can't beat the youngsters, eh? They are so fast. I drove the first half, and we were a bit slower, and since he took over, I mean, it was just flying to the finish. It was a great race. We enjoyed it, and thanks to everybody that contributed to making this success for us and for the organizers and everybody. It's been lekker.
The Hungarians were unlucky to have a mechanical failure at a critical time. Shmakov was very pleased with a drive that also was littered with mechanical failure.
Нет, а мы сегодня спокойно ехали, надоест.
Today we drove really slowly and carefully, so that's why the car was okay, because our strategy was to arrive at the end, because we knew the provisional results. That's why our strategy was to economize the car.
To the victors, the spoils, and it certainly was 3 days' worth of bubbly at the end.
After we had that problem, we started to push extremely hard, just for fun, just to enjoy the car and the track itself. And we are very happy now that we are in the finish, and I think it will be seen in our results that this section we pushed very hard.
In the end, Shmakov and Mezhelyakov coming through in 20 hours and 43 minutes, a healthy lead over Kiz and Cegledi, and it was the father and son combination, the Cries, who were the only team that went without lateness penalties, finishing in 9 hours and 21 minutes. Go! All told, a great debut for the African Heritage Rally in South Africa. Let's hope we get the lads back here next year.
History has been made because we've had the first international non-tar event in South Africa, and it's gone very, very well. The competitors have enjoyed it immensely, and the South African competitors who took part in it have actually shown they don't have to stand back to the international people in any way, because they actually are capable of beating them in our own equipment.